Sagawa shoved Chiaki up against the desk. Ow! Cut it out. That hurts. As she struggled to resist, Chiaki lurched toward the desk, planting one of her hands atop the TV remote control. One of her fingers happened to land on the volume up button. The sound from the television set soon hit max volume. We have just learned the identity of the victim killed in the explosion. Shibuya resident and a pharmaceutical executive. Shibuya resident? Minodikawa tilted his head in confusion. Toyama didn't live in Shibuya. Once again, the victim of the explosion was Shibuya resident and pharmaceutical company executive Mamoru Tanaka. The cause of the explosion remains unknown. The police are still in the process of following up several potential leads. The site of the incident remains an alarming scene, with relief workers continuing to tend to the wounded. The four people in the editing office spoke in near unison. Huh? Who's Tanaka? Alright, so now we finally hit his to be continued, and I think that's everybody's. So here comes the trailer, I guess, or the intro reel. Yeah, here we go. Did I just see a zombie with, like, fire eyes there? I bet that can't be real. If that's real, then this visual novel goes places. I mean, if that is real, it's probably just a bad end. Anyway, we just got an achievement. Running out of time. Oh, we don't get Maria. We only get Osawa, Minodikawa, Kano, and Achi. Actually, yeah, Maria's story ended there, didn't it? I wonder if we can change that. We'll have to see. I'm still guessing maybe at some point we're gonna have to go back and do things differently, but we'll see. Alright, so who do we care about first? We've got Achi here. I don't remember exactly what he was up to, but I guess he was with Hitomi still. We've got Osawa, we've got Minodikawa, and we've got Kano. Well, Kano is going to be the most exciting one, but I think we're going to hold off for him. Probably until last. So instead, I think we're going to flash back to Osawa right now. The rain won't let up. The sound is growing louder and louder inside my head. It is the sound of regret spattering against my heart. My emotions surged like a terrible storm within me. I never wished for this. Never expected my heart to be dragged so far beyond my control. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. The words stormed through Osawa's mind in a relentless cacophony. He'd called up images of the bodies from the human testing trials on his computer monitor. He couldn't help but imagine his daughter in the same gruesome state. In just a few more hours, Maria would begin hemorrhaging blood and die like the people in those pictures had. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. He couldn't shake the words or the reality from his mind. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Sawa began pounding his fists fiercely on the desktop. Sir, what are you doing? Kajiwara tried to intervene, but he kept on pounding away. When he finally ceased, the pain of the repeated impacts lingered in his hand. My research was never about any sincere desire to help people. And now I'm paying the price for that. The one time it finally matters, I can't even save my own daughter. Mr. Osawa, Kajiwara set a hand on his shoulder. You can always blame yourself later. But for now, think again, good and hard. Is there really no other way to save Maria? Nothing else we could try? Osawa shook his head. The only means we had left was using Tanaka's password to unlock the doors. And now Tanaka is dead. There's no other way. I mean, I'm still wondering if they could just, like, break the doors down or something, but... Is there a possibility that Mr. Tanaka told someone else's password? This was something Osawa hadn't considered. Was there anyone Tanaka might have shared his password with? Maybe, if anybody, like, Hitomi? Or maybe I, because she had the bug on him? Only one person came to mind. Well, yes, there may be someone. You're referring to I, sir. Kajiwara cast his eyes down. You figured that out, then? Yes. Factoring the commotion over that listening device, a necktie clip isn't exactly the sort of present one gives to one's husband's co-worker. And yet, although some might consider it somewhat inappropriate, Mr. Tanaka was wearing it as if it were a matter of course. Which implies something about their relationship. Kajiwara's voice trailed off. He coughed apologetically and tried again. I realize it's an awkward situation, sir, but please, check with your wife. Even if I does happen to know the password, that does us no good if Maria gets quarantined someplace we can't reach her. I understand, Mr. Osawa. I'll bring Maria to you, then. I'll do everything in my power to make that happen. The detective then produced a bunch of bananas from his pocket. These are all left over. You're more than welcome to them, sir. Despite his gentle smile, the rest of his face was firm with resolve. You said you didn't care whether other people understood you, didn't you, Mr. Osawa? Osawa nodded guardedly. At the risk of being presumptuous, sir, I understand you, Kajiwara said. I used to be quite the workaholic myself. You're just like me, innocent and awkward. Whoops. Let's see, what was this button again? Nope. There we go. It's been a while since I played this, so I had to relearn some of the buttons. Okay, just like me. On another occasion, Kajiwara was shocked to run into a man who looked just like him. The fellow was a stylist at a hair salon Kajiwara visits on occasion. He let out a gasp of surprise of his own upon seeing the detective. Kajiwara felt a peculiar connection and was expecting to go to the salon regularly, but when the stylist asked what he did for a living, and Kajiwara answered honestly that he was a detective, the other man's face went pale, and he bolted out of the building. Kajiwara never saw the man again after that. Calling yourself innocent, huh? How modest of you. Osawa let out a sardonic chuckle, and after a moment, Kajiwara joined in. The next time I see you, Mr. Osawa, I'll have Maria with me. The detective gave a slight bow, then left the study, a look of determination on his face. Osawa watched him go with admiration. No matter what trouble arose, the man always looked for something he could do. He really was a fellow who knew how to hang tough. Compared to that, I'm just... Osawa couldn't even articulate his own self-disgust. And asking Ai about the password would also mean inquiring into her relationship with Tanaka. The prospect was daunting. Venturing into the emotional territory of another person was his weakest suit. He left his study, but somehow found himself making his way to Maria's room, not Ai's. He realized that he hadn't been into his daughter's room since a certain rainy day, years before. Now he stepped quietly inside and saw Maria's world laid out before him. A small photo was set atop her neat and tidy desk. It was a close-up of someone's hands doing a cat's cradle. Whose hands were they? From the skin tone, they didn't appear to be Maria's. Well, I guess that's Kanan, and she finally managed to do it eventually. Several more photographs were pinned to a corkboard that hung on the wall. There were snapshots of people and townscapes from the Middle East. One glance at them and Osawa felt like he was back there for a moment. The images weren't necessarily aesthetically pleasing, but they all looked like they'd been taken by a professional. When he spotted the last photo on the corkboard, however, he was certain that Maria had taken them all. The last picture was of Osawa himself. He was facing the camera, holding some luggage and flashing an awkward smile. It was a comical, affectionate image. He'd never known that photography was one of his daughter's hobbies. No, this went beyond a mere hobby. Did she perhaps aspire to be a professional photographer one day? She certainly had the aptitude for it, from the look of things. Maria, a photographer. As he mulled the idea over, Osawa felt his chest tighten. Right now, it looked like Maria's hopes and dreams were about to be snuffed out. Her future consisted of bleeding to death a few short hours from now. Osawa stared vacantly out the window. The view from Maria's room remained unchanged from so long ago. Again, that rainy day crept back into his mind, as vivid as the present. On that day, Osawa was dealing with some pressing business from work. He'd ensconced himself in his study, wrestling with some paperwork, when Hitomi barged in looking distraught. Maria's gone. Sensing that Hitomi was legitimately alarmed, Osawa hurried to Maria's room. He found a letter she'd left atop her writing desk. Dad, you only care about Hitomi. You're always working and never do anything with me, so I'm running away. A few hours earlier, he'd canceled their weekend trip to the amusement park. He just wasn't going to be able to get his work done in time. Hitomi had resigned herself readily enough, but Maria just couldn't accept it. She'd been looking forward to it for so long, she railed at him. How many times now had he broken one of his promises to her? Hitomi understands why we can't go, so why can't you do the same? The cold rebuke had ended her complaining, but it was clear she still didn't accept the situation. Now, Hitomi helped them look around, but they found nothing missing from Maria's room. Despite her assertion that she was running away, then, it seemed like there was no point in being overly concerned. Maybe she's at the park she always goes to. Hitomi looked worried. The park was roughly a 25-minute walk from the house. It would only take about an hour for Osawa to go get her and bring her home. But an hour was more than he could afford to spare right now. Dad, I think she's waiting for you to go after her. Osawa didn't need Hitomi to tell him that. He knew it well enough. That was what galled him so much about the situation. Why did she have to pull something like this precisely when his work was at its busiest? He'd done everything he could as a father since his wife had passed away. Why couldn't his daughter see that? It's alright. Your sister will come back. The rain was coming down pretty hard outside the window. Do you think she brought an umbrella? Hitomi asked anxiously. I don't know, but with rain like this, she'll come back home soon enough. He spoke the words for himself as much as for Hitomi. Then he headed back to his study and got back to work. But several hours went by and Maria still did not return. The rain had gotten even more intense, to the point where Osawa could hear it in his study. He was so concerned about his missing girl that he couldn't focus on his work, but he stubbornly refused to give in and go search for her. Several more hours passed. At last, Maria appeared at the front door, soaking wet. Osawa met her silently in the entryway. Wet strands of hair clung to the girl's forehead as she looked up at her father with a bitter glare. You don't care what happens to me, do you? Immediately, Osawa smacked her across the cheek with the flat of his hand. It was the first time in his life he'd ever struck anyone. He hadn't known such a violent impulse could exist inside him. Maria stood there, her hand pressed to her cheek. Tears welled up in her eyes. She began to tremble. On her lip was a small bead of blood. A flood of guilt and regret rose up inside Osawa, as if he just shattered some intricate piece of glasswork. How? How could I do such a thing? He clenched his shameful hand into a fist. And in that moment, he was afraid of Maria. Afraid that his daughter could bring such raw emotion out of him and make him do something so thoughtless. But even more, he was afraid of how stunted he was as a human being. Was someone like him really fit to be a parent? What kind of future could Maria and Hitomi hope for with a father like him? That was why he'd married Ai, as Makino had proposed. Having a mother, he decided, would help keep his family together despite their sad excuse for a father. But in so doing, Osawa had dug a psychological ditch between himself and his daughters. A deep ditch, so that he could keep his daughters from being hurt. So that he wouldn't hurt himself. Now, Osawa was staring across that ditch, wondering if it was too wide to leap. He thought back to his earlier exchange with Kajiwara. If you get angry, you show it. If you get sad, you show it. It's human nature to let other people know how we're feeling after all. But what if doing that hurts the other person? Well, that's when you apologize, sir. Yes, that was right. He needed to apologize to Maria for what he'd done that day. It still wasn't too late. It's never too late. When it comes to family, there's no such thing as game over. He recalled Pretty Honey's words. He needed to apologize to Maria, and so he needed to ask I for that password. Osawa was going to have to face his wife. Alright, so we've got to keep out with him. Interesting. But then again, characters don't necessarily have to meet each other for them to go through keep outs, so it doesn't necessarily mean anybody's going to run into him. So I think we can either go with Achi or Minorikawa here. I think I'm going to go in order of least interesting to most interesting. So we're going to go with Minorikawa here, and then Achi, and then Kano. The TV news continued to report on how Mamoru Tanaka had been killed in the minivan explosion. What does this mean? Chiaki blinked in confusion. I mean, Hana told us herself that the van explosion was her father committing suicide, didn't she? The only explanation I can think of, Minorikawa replied, is that Hana is a stupid child and that she was wrong. Is that Hana was lying. I mean, I guess that's also possible. He scratched his head as he considered the situation. But why? Chiaki said. Ozu let out a snort. Well, it would seem Mr. Toyama had her lie in order to deceive us. What an upstanding individual using his own daughter to buy himself some time. Minorikawa wanted to yell at the guy, but he managed to hold his tongue. The important thing was that Toyama was still alive. And if he was still alive, then there was still a way to save Heaven Publishing. They'd get the current issue out on time, with a big scoop waiting in the wings for the issue after that. From there on out, it should be smooth sailing. Well, no matter, Ozu said. Seeing as Mr. Toyama isn't dead after all, we'll just wait here for him. He sat back down on the sofa. But Sagawa leaned threateningly toward Chiaki. Hey, he snarled. You sure you don't know where the guy's hiding out? I don't, Chiaki shot back. And even if I did, I'd never tell you. Say what now? He leaned in even closer just as she stood on her tiptoes in defiance, and their foreheads collided with a dull thud. Both reeled back, clutching their heads in their hands. Just calm down, Chiaki, Minorikawa said as he began rooting through Toyama's desk. For now, I'm gonna look for clues to where Toyama might have gone. You just focus on working on your article. Oh? Ozu raised an eyebrow. Getting all cooperative all of a sudden, I see. I want to change up the plan for next month's issue, and I can't do that without the editor-in-chief's approval. What Minorikawa was actually looking for, however, was a back issue of 4-Star General Gossip. He was pretty sure the article on Osawa had been printed in the magazine's inaugural issue. If he could find that scandalous piece that the scientists had asked for, he'd also be able to get his big lead about the power balance of the world being at stake. And if he could get that, not only would next month's issue be a sure thing, it was a good bet that sales figures would go through the roof. He found a file folder full of early material and quickly flipped through it. Didn't take him long to find the article. Floundering Okoshi Pharmaceutical arranges marriage of political convenience. A large headline practically jumped off the page. Minorikawa quickly read over the story. The basic gist of it was this. The corporate director of Okoshi Pharmaceutical had sacrificed his daughter in order to keep a researcher named Kenji Osawa on board. The daughter, however, had previously been dating another man. That must be Osawa wanted him to look into, the guy his wife had been dating before they were married. It should be easy enough to just ask whoever had written the article. Minotikawa's gaze jumped to the end of the piece, looking for the writing credit. The piece had been written by Toyama himself. "Hey, ain't you done yet?" Sagawa yelled. "Tell us where Toyama is already." Yeah, Minotikawa thought. We're gonna need to do something about these guys. "Still looking into it," he said. "Just hold on." He made a show of opening and closing various desk drawers. The drawers themselves were packed with a jumbled mess of electrical and gas bills, Noodle House delivery menus and the like. "Look faster," Sagawa growled. For now, Minotikawa decided he'd better butter this guy up. Maybe he could mollify this guy by having some noodles delivered for dinner. Let's see. I guess maybe we'll go with A for now. For now, Minotikawa decided, he'd better butter this guy up. "Say, you look like a pretty tough guy. You work out?" Sagawa grinned, thrusting his fist out in an emphatic air punch. "I used to be a boxer." Back in his boxing days, Sagawa was so tough, people called him the dogfighter of Shibuya. One day, however, as he was walking along, he happened to step onto a strange panel that made him fall into a state of confusion and go on a rampage. He was quickly arrested, and his boxing license was revoked. The mysterious panel Sagawa stepped on. They say that there are also panels shaped like feet, and even panels shaped like rice balls. I don't know what that's a reference to. I don't know. It must be something, like some kind of game, but I don't know. Probably something published by either Spike Chunsoft or whoever was responsible for this. "I could drop a guy like you in one punch." "Oh-ho! Guess there aren't many folks who can give you a good fight then." Sagawa dropped into a fighting pose and threw a few quick jabs. "Well, matter of fact, I'm unbeatable in a street fight. They call me the Crazy Tiger of Shibuya." "Shibuya, huh? You familiar with SOS, then?" Sagawa's face twisted into a sneer. "What, those guys?" "I mean, I've heard they're pretty tough, too." Only one of them who'd be able to give me a fight would probably be that Achi Endo. Except as I hear it, he's left the gang." "Aha, really now? Heard anything else interesting?" "Sounds like nowadays they're being run by some guy named Susumu." The name Susumu rung a bell. Those two young punks who'd been arguing after the van explosion had mentioned him. "Seems like SOS is in a pretty rough state since Achi left, though," Sagawa added. Minotikawa didn't miss a beat. "What do you mean, rough state?" "Well, back in the day, they were all goody two-shoes, never shake folks down or steal or any of that stuff. Guess their founder Achi hated that sort of thing. But now that he's out, a lot of rough and tumble, hot-blooded types have been signing up with them. Smart move is not to get involved with SOS nowadays, really. Hard to find a scarier bunch round here when there's a lot of them together." "And their main hangout, that's at Inferno, yeah?" "Yeah, over in Ura-Harajuku. Known as Urahara for short. The area east of the Japan Rail Harajuku Station, around where Takashita Dori meets Meiji Dori. There are many small clothing and accessory stores here, set up in renovated houses. Most of these shops are on the cutting edge of youth fashion, offering quirky and unique means of personal expression." "Man, you've been listening out on the streets. What gives?" "Ura-Harajuku, huh?" Minotikawa smiled to himself. Inferno's location had practically fallen into his lap. Suddenly, Sagawa's eyes went wide. "Aha! So that's where Toyama is." "Wait, nah, no way a coward like him would go to a place like that." Chiaki looked up from her keyboard. "Look, can you please shut up?" "No, you shut up." That's my phone. Minodikawa pulled his cell out of his pocket. It was Toyama's name on the incoming call screen. Minodikawa's heart skipped a beat. "Toyama, where are you?" he blurted out as he picked up. Chiaki Obuzu and Sagawa turned to look at him as one. "Well, what were you thinking, faking your death like that? Even if we could fill those pages and postpone repayment, all it would do is delay the inevitable. I'd still be up to my ears in debt. So I thought if I made it look like I was dead..." Minodikawa let out an exasperated sigh. "Well, everyone already knows you're still alive, so your little attempt at subterfuge didn't even wind up buying you time." "What?" Toyama's hysterical squeak was painful to hear. "Alright, listen up," Minodikawa said. "If it's the debt you're worried about, you'll be able to pay that back real soon." "What do you mean?" "I've landed a huge scoop. You could do a print run of 1,000,000 copies and still sell out if we can run it as an article." Toyama perked right up. "Wait, you really mean it? I'll give you all the details, just get your butt back here." "But aren't those loan sharks there at the office right now?" "Fine, then I'll come to you. Tell me where you are." The two thugs crowded nearer, a predatory gleam in their eyes, and Minodikawa had a flash of inspiration. "Got it," he said quickly, before Toyama could respond. "Miyashita Park. I'm on my way now. Don't go anywhere." Ozu and Sagawa grinned at one another, then bolted out the door. "Huh," Minodikawa said as their footsteps receded. "Those guys took the bait. I sent them to Miyashita Park." He allowed himself a cocksure grin. "Right then. So, where are you really, Toyama?" Here's where he says, I'm actually in Miyashita Park." You imbecile! I am at Miyashita Park." "What?" Minodikawa fought the urge to pull his hair out. "What the hell are you doing someplace like that? Why the hell did you tell them Miyashita Park?" "I thought it would be a clever ruse." "Well, it wasn't." "This is no time to be fighting," Chiaki butted in. "Yeah, you're right," Minodikawa scowled. "Anyway, Toyama, those guys are headed your way. We need you to get out of there and go someplace we can talk." "I can meet you there." "Right, okay." They needed someplace safe and public where they could speak freely. Someplace where the staff wouldn't be overly nosy. But where? Minodikawa thought. So, we could go to any of these, but I'm going to choose that next time, so... Until then, take care, and I will see you then.